Calificas para ser legal. ¿Quieres saber? Solo llama al abogado Andrés Mejer.
Thank you for joining us in the English program of our radio show Para Ser Legal. Today, we're going to be talking about three things. One, what is the American Dream and Promise Act that the House of Representatives passed just a couple days ago? Two, can I travel in the U.S. if I'm illegal? Can I travel in the U.S. if I'm in the middle of my process for my green card or something else? And we're talking about situations, what are riskier, how to minimize those risks, what you can and can't do. And lastly, third thing is I'm going to give you examples of people that did not follow this advice, were deported from the U.S. for not doing the right thing. So, what is the American Dream and Promise Act? Can I travel in the United States? And horror stories for those that made mistakes. My name is Andrés Mejer. I'm a published author, frequent speaker, and I'm an immigration attorney. I focus on helping immigrants achieve legal status in the United States, how to stay in the U.S. legally. If at any point you have any questions, you can always call us directly at 888-888-0307. That's 888-888-0307. So, top of the segment. What is the American Dream and Promise Act of 2019 that the House of Representatives just passed last week? Well, this is a bill to help the dreamers, those that have DACA, those that have TPS, and those that have what's called deferred enforced departure. It provides a path to citizenship for those individuals. Don't forget, Trump has tried to eliminate DACA. The courts have stopped it. They've tried to decertify all those that have TPS and deport them. The courts have stopped it. They've tried to stop deferred enforced departure. The courts have stopped it. Now, those courts, they're going to go through appeals process, and ultimately there'll be a final decision. And that final decision either will prevent Trump from doing it or will allow it. At some point, Trump will be allowed to, it's like the travel ban. The Muslim travel ban. So Trump says something, throws something together, and then over several iterations, ultimately, there's a form that will be approved by a court. What it ultimately looks like is usually very different than what it initially looked like. And that is likely to happen with DACA and TPS as well. But Trump has to do it the right way, which he likes to shortcut. He just wants it done his way, period. He doesn't care about Congress. He doesn't care about the Constitution or people's rights. He just wants what he wants. And that's why so many courts have stopped him so many times. And a lot of them were Republican judges who were essentially saying, give me something I can work with. Do something. Don't just make things up. And that's partly what he's been doing. So, American Dream and Promise Act passed by the House of Representatives. It gives a path to citizenship for the dreamers, TPS and deferred action departure. There are approximately 2.1 million dreamers that would qualify under this plan. It's more than the approximate 800,000 that have applied and been approved for DACA. Deferred action deportation is about 4,000 individuals from Liberia, not very much. TPS, just over 400,000. So 2.5 million immigrants, undocumented immigrants, that would be able to achieve legal status through this path. Now, how does this work, you ask? Well, they're creating what's called a conditional green card. You meet certain requirements, you achieve that status, you keep it for a certain period of time, then you can apply for the permanent green card. You keep that for a period of time, and then you can apply for citizenship. Now, conditional green card exists today. Typically, though, it's individuals, it's marriage-based family petition where the marriage is less than 2 years old when they give you your green card. So my wife and I, now we're married 13 years, but for argument's sake, let's say we married last year. She applied for me, I go for my interview, it's been less than 2 years, they'll give me the conditional green card, and within 2 years after I received it, I have to apply to remove the conditions on the green card. I just met with a potential client yesterday who achieved the conditional green card in March 2014. March 2016 came by, he never filed to remove the conditions on his green card. The government put him in removal proceedings, and now he needs legal representation to do what he should have done 3 years ago. So his green card had expired, his driver's license had expired. Unfortunate, all things that can be fixed, and now what would have been not simple, but an easier, more routine process is compounded because he's in removal proceedings. So conditional green card for the dreamers, have to pass a background search, have to show that you're a good moral character, has to show that he came to the United States before he was a minor. Now we don't know, do they mean 18 or 21? Immigration minors is usually under 21, but DACA, we know they had to have been in the U.S. before they were 16. So we need to see precisely what that language is going to be, and that they must have lived in the U.S. for the last 4 years, not a long time. 4 years, I mean, look, why do I say that? Because those that applied for DACA had to show they were here for 5 years, that they entered before June 15, 2007. Now we're in 2019, so if today if they would be accepting new DACA applications, they have to show they've been here the past 12 years. That's not insignificant, a lot harder than just the past 4 years. So background search, good moral character, been here the past 4 years, and either in high school, graduated high school, in a GAD program, graduated GAD program, or in a college of higher institution, meaning some post-high school studies. Once you have the conditional green card for 10 years, you can then apply for the permanent green card. Now, if it follows the current process, once you have your lawful permanent resident for 5 years, you can then apply for citizenship. So that's for the dreamers, those that have DACA. Now, TPS and deferred enforced departure need to have been living in the U.S. for the past 3 years, need to be eligible or had TPS on September 25th, 2016, and the same thing for deferred enforced departure, must have had it on September 25th, 2016. About 400,000 of those in total, 2.1 million of the dreamers. They would receive conditional green card for a period of 10 years. Once they have that, they can apply for their lawful permanent resident card, the permanent green card that's good for 10 years. Once they have that for 5 years, they'll be able to apply for citizenship. Now, we don't know what's going to happen now. It passed the House of Representatives, but remember, in order to become law, it has to go to the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans at the moment, has to be approved by the Senate, and then it needs to go to, if it's similar to the present bill, it goes to the president for signature. If it's different, then there has to be a committee created comprised of senators and House and congressmen, and they have to work together on a bill, and if depending on whether it's significantly different or not, if it's similar to both, it goes to the president, or it has to go back each to the Senate and to the House, be approved in its final form, and then go to the president. So there's a lot of work that needs to be had. I really hope that this isn't just, like what happened with the Senate in 2015, 2016, the comprehensive immigration reform to pass the Senate, but the Tea Party controlled the House of Representatives and never even took it up, never voted on it. So we will see what happens. So thank you for joining us in this English segment. We just finished what is the Praise Act of 2019. Now we're going to talk about travel in the U.S. If I'm illegal in the United States, can I inside the U.S., can I travel outside the U.S.? So the short answer is yes, of course you can travel, both inside and outside. But there are risks. Those risks might include detention by ICE, might include deportation from the U.S., or not being allowed to return to the U.S. So let's start with what happens if I'm undocumented. What's undocumented? Or what's illegal? So there's two ways. I could have entered the United States legally with a visa and either violated the terms of that visa or overstayed that visa. Then I'm no longer legally in the U.S. Or I never entered legally to begin with. I crossed the border somewhere. I was expected or admitted and allowed to enter the United States. I just walk along. I'm here without permission. So in either of those two scenarios, you're illegally in the United States. Doesn't mean you committed a crime necessarily. It might be a misdemeanor, or it might be, again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But for purpose of now, if you're here without permission, you don't have status in the United States, you live at risk every single day. Walking outside your house, driving, being a passenger, everything is a risk that you might become in contact with law enforcement or ICE, and they may discover that you're here without permission, and they may put you in removal proceedings. That's your reality. Like it or not, it is what it is. So, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, I'm here illegally, or I'm here undocumented, can I travel to Texas or to California or wherever? I want to look at colleges, or my cousin or my relative is getting married, or I'd like to go. Okay, you can, but there's a risk. Why? Well, airports, guess who's in airports? ICE, Customs Border Patrol. There's immigration officials inside the airport. Now, typically speaking, if I'm traveling, even domestically, even if it's, whether I travel to Arizona, to California, to Chicago, or to Hawaii or Puerto Rico, it's all considered part of the United States. I can travel there just simply by showing my driver's license. I need to show a form of valid identification. It doesn't have to be my passport. It can be. If I'm traveling outside of the U.S., I must show my passport or I can't travel. As I learned not too long ago, I made the mistake. I was going to go to Mexico for a conference, and I left my passport at home. I'm an immigration attorney, and we all make mistakes. I was able to get it sent to me, and ultimately I was able to go, but still, it delayed my plans, and it was frustration. Couldn't believe that I forgot my passport. It happens. But if I'm traveling within the United States, I only need to show lawful identification. So if I'm undocumented and I have a license, let's say I'm from North Carolina, but I'm going to New York. So I took a plane to New York or to New Jersey. I have a driver's license from North Carolina. It's valid at wherever. And now I'm taking another flight from New York and New Jersey to Arizona or California. I show my license, I don't have a problem. I am not likely to have a problem. Now, if for whatever reason I have contact with ICE, and it has happened, and I show them my driver's license, chances are they're not going to ask you beyond that. But if they do, you must have what I call the red card. It's a card with our number, but more importantly, it has your rights. Number one being, I don't answer any questions without an attorney present. Period. You have no right, and I'm not going to, here's my name, here's my information, I don't answer anything beyond that. If you show your passport to an immigration official, they're going to know real fast if you're here with permission or not, because your passport is going to show. Do you have a visa? When did you last enter? What's your legal status? Now, yeah, it could be that you're a green card holder and your passport expired and you renewed it and the renewal didn't have your entry. Okay, but you have proof of your green card holder. You're going to have that information. Your information is going to be in the system. If it's not a new passport and it doesn't show that you have legal status, you're going to get detained and you're going to be placed in removal proceedings. Now, what happens? So, if you get detained by an officer, if you get interviewed, you don't answer any questions without an attorney present. Period. They're going to threaten you. They're going to tell you don't answer without an attorney. That's it. Now, the riskiest is going to the airport for the simple reason is ICE is already in the building. Bus, train, car. So, in a scale, car is the least risky. Airplane is the riskiest. Does that mean you're going to get detained? No, just a matter of a risk. Now, if you're driving in your car, there's been lots of cases of this, and you're in the South within 100 miles of the border, Customs border you may hit a checkpoint, and they may ask you for information, and you may get detained. Because within 100 miles of the border, that's either north, so like think of Niagara Falls, New York, Buffalo, New York, very close to the border, or in south, Laredo, Texas. In parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and California, where within 100 miles of the border, you could be driving, you could be pulled over by customs border. Information about your immigration status. It happens, but within the inside of the U.S., it's much less likely. Officer may pull you over, but that's usually not an immigration officer. You show your documentation. Maybe you're subject to a traffic ticket, a traffic violation, but you don't usually get detained unless you've committed a crime, or they pull you over, discover you have an order of removal or an order of arrest, and then other things happen. But it's not specifically because you're being an immigrant. Now, bus or train, there have been cases where ICE officers board the plane and start asking people questions. That's why it's so incredibly important that you know your rights. I'm not answering any question without an attorney present. They're going to push you and say, what? Are you guilty? Are you, what are you hiding? I have nothing to hide. I just know my rights, and you're not allowed to do what you're doing. So go and do it to somebody else, because I ain't falling for it. Now, what if you have DACA or TPS? Well, if you have DACA or TPS, you can travel inside the United States without a problem. Outside the U.S., no. You can certainly travel, you just ain't getting back. You can go outside the U.S. You don't need permission from the U.S. government to leave. You do need permission to come back. So DACA holders were able to apply for what's called advanced parole under Obama. Trump eliminated it real fast with his attempt to eliminate DACA entirely. He first got rid of advanced parole, and no court has reinstated it. So if you're a DACA holder and you had advanced parole, it's permission to leave the U.S. and then re-enter, and you never used it, you lost that opportunity. If you never applied, again, you lost that opportunity because you can't apply for it now. TPS holders still can apply as long as they still have TPS. I would think twice about doing it in this climate. They're going to give you a hard time. It's just what they do. So if it's not an emergency, I suggest you don't do it. Meaning leave outside the U.S. Hawaii, Puerto Rico, not a problem. Alaska, not a problem. I'm talking about if you're going, even just to go into Canada or just going to Mexico. Don't do it unless you have to. Now, what happens if your green card petition is filed but not yet approved? Well, you can file for advanced parole. I tell all my clients, don't do it. Today, you qualify for legal status. Stay the course. I understand emergencies happen. Wait 6 months, wait a year. Defer that trip as long as possible. Wait until you achieve your green card before leaving. There have been plenty of cases that people got detained and weren't allowed back in the United States for all sorts of reasons. I have a client now, well, he had to leave the U.S. in order to achieve his green card, but he made the mistake of smoking marijuana. A lot. And then he went to his medical exam. And in his blood work, it found evidence of drug use. So the government said, I'm sorry, we're not allowing you back into the United States for 6 months. Go for therapy and show me that you don't have it in your system anymore. So he's stuck in El Salvador for 6 months because he used an illegal drug. Now, if that had happened inside the U.S., he might have gotten arrested and charged with possession of a controlled dangerous substance. So even if he lived in Colorado, and even if in Colorado he's allowed under the laws of Colorado to smoke pot, marijuana, he's applying for an immigration benefit under federal law, and federal law still considers marijuana a controlled dangerous substance and therefore illegal. First part of this program, we spoke about the American Dreamers and Promise Act 2019 that passed the House of Representatives. Here in the second section, we talked about, can I travel inside the U.S. if I'm illegal? Can I travel outside the U.S. if I'm applying for a legal status because I have an emergency? Now I want to talk about stories. Here are some individuals because they didn't follow this advice. So first is Han Hyun Mu, 17-year-old born in Korea. Mother was Korean, father was Nigerian. Tried to come into the United States, and he was detained and deported because they didn't believe him that he was Korean. Why? Because he looks African American, 100%. That's everything. He doesn't. Probably looks a lot more like his father than his mother. Doesn't speak a word of English. A Korean passport. They didn't believe he was actually Korean. I can't make this stuff up. It really does happen. Look, I'm born in Chile. My mother is from Chile. My father is from Argentina. I don't look Hispanic. When I tell people I'm from Chile, they're like, "Are you kidding me? As American as I do." Yeah, because my family comes from Europe the same way as most Americans' family come from Europe. Look, before, other than Native Americans, there are no Native Americans, if you get my pun. So the Indians have been here before us formerly Europeans were. So my family came from Europe before they went to South America, just like a lot of Americans' ancestors came from Europe and came to the U.S. So we come from the same parts of the world initially. And that's why I look American. I am American. I'm an immigrant. I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen. But you can't judge a book by its cover. Han Hyun Mu did not speak a word of English, only spoke Korean, and looked like somebody from the Bronx or from Atlanta. He looked as American as any African American does, and they didn't believe him. Now, let me give you another horror story. This one's worse. So that one is just you can't judge a book by its cover. So if he had been traveling inside the U.S., he might have gotten the same level of suspicion, the same level of scrutiny. Here, I think, was an officer. I don't know. Maybe he had worked a long shift. I don't know what happened. I mean, one could check the validity of a passport. I don't see how that's a basis to not allow someone into the United States. But hey, there's lots of that going on nowadays. So let's talk about Maria and George. Those are not their real names. George is a U.S. citizen living in Florida. Maria is a Canadian citizen who wanted to live in Florida. So she and her two boys went to Florida on vacation, met George, romance happened. For the next 2 years, every two or three times a year, either Maria would come to Florida, to the U.S., or George would go to Canada, or vice versa. In one of those trips, the most recent one, she brought her two boys. School was out. They came for the summer to stay with George, and George proposed, and she said yes. Now again, George is a U.S. citizen. Maria is a Canadian citizen. So Maria overstayed her visa. She stayed longer than she should have. And to celebrate the engagement, she went on a cruise with some friends, and that cruise left the territorial waters of the United States. And when she tried to re-enter, she met a Customs Border official who asked her, "Well, ma'am, I see that you were here, you overstayed your visa by just a couple of days, you left for a week and you came back. What's going on? Why are you spending so much time in the U.S. and why are you coming back?" And she says, "Well, I went on a cruise with some friends to celebrate my engagement. My boys are here with my fiance, who's a U.S. citizen, and it's our intention to get married and to ultimately live in the U.S." Big no-no. Why? She entered the U.S. tourist. Canadian citizen just presents her visa. There's an implied statement by presenting her passport, just like if you come from the UK or from Spain or Portugal or you're now from Chile. There's implied in the visa is that you're coming to the U.S. temporarily and then leaving back to your home country. It is not your intent to stay here in the U.S. permanently, but only for a short period of time for X reason. The moment you say it's my intention to stay here permanently, you can't enter under a temporary visa. It's not appropriate. So the officer, he could have just denied her entry. No, he deported her back to Canada. Husband came to us after the fact. What do? Well, he flew to Canada, they got married, he's applying for her, and we're going through that process, and it's compounded by the fact that she now has an order of removal. It was unnecessary. It could have been avoided. I would have told her not to go on the cruise. If it was her desire to stay here, they should have gotten married, and he should have filed for her first, and she should have waited until she was a green card holder before traveling. Alternatively, she could have filed for the consular process, meaning family-based petitions have two processes, generally two stages. One is document the relationship, that it's legitimate and appropriate, that it isn't done just for to receive an immigration benefit. And the second part is change of status. She could have said, listen, I came here, I got engaged, we now got married, but I need to go and sell my home, I need to pack up my stuff, I need to bring, the kids need to finish school, or whatever it is, right? I need to pack up my stuff and come back to the United States. I'm going to be going back and forth for a while until I get my green card, and then I'll stay here. Now, she could be 100% above board. She could disclose that. They may give her a problem at the border, or they may not. It really depends on the officer. But at the end of the day, they should allow her entry. But she's saying, hey, I'm already married, my petition's pending, please allow me to enter temporarily for a period of time. I am going to have to leave because my interview I chose to have in Canada. I could have had it in the US, but I chose not to because I'm not going to be staying here until I'm a green card holder. So all of that could have been done, and I would have given that advice had I met her, but I didn't meet her until, I didn't meet her in person yet. I spoke to her over Zoom. Through video, and her husband. So him I met personally. But that was after the fact, and the damage had already been done. So be very careful. Thank you for listening to this program. My name is Mejer. As always, if you have any questions, you can give us a call at 888-0307. That's 888-888-0307. You can find us on social media or on the web at Mejer Law. Until next time.
Calificas para ser legal, ¿quieres saber? Solo llama al abogado Andrés Mejer.